Welcome to the Mindful Nomad podcast. I'm your host, Miguel Gutierrez. This podcast is an exploration into the world of creatives, community leaders, and entrepreneurs, taking a deep dive into their lives, focusing strongly on lifestyle, spirituality, mental health, and education. So grab a seat, relax, and join me for this exciting journey through conversations with other mindful nomads. Welcome to my first episode of Mindful Nomad. It's a relaunch and I have zero plan. Today we have Mr. Alan Beak. He's been on the podcast previously when it was Travel Cuts and Consciousness. And I thought he's the perfect person to have back in because he is very mindful at the moment.
Trying to be.
Yeah. Do you want to give the people a little bit of a quick bio? I haven't really got a plan apart from that, so.
No, I think obviously the best thing is not to have a plan. If we was to have a plan and then we deviated away from it, then you kind of like get stuck, don't you? But first of all, mate, thank you for having me. I love the way that you've gone with this. Did you just go on Pinterest and type in opium den chic?
Exactly.
Yeah. Crack den chic, and then let's go with
the keywords were actually crack den Ruger.
Oh really? Yeah. I thought it was like ayahuasca ceremony-esque chic look, but I'm into it. I like it. Bio. I started working in a barbershop when I was 12 years old. I love being in that environment. I like the smell, the sound, the people, and always been a people pleaser, which is a blessing and a curse. We'll go through a lot of that. I think this kind of chat is going to be more of a mentality kind of thing, identifying some strengths. I'm not really focusing on that much, but kind of, I don't want it to be a depressing chat, but I think it's be nice for us to go into an insight as to the negative side of kind of work and how we overcome demons and the downfalls of what trying to build an empire, trying to be successful, and kind of subjectively what fucking success is. But I just at 12 I knew right there and then I was going to be working with people, and I worked in the barbershop up until 19. I left and became worked in a bar, ran a restaurant, loved it. I got to be around people I know and loved. If you see Miguel mooching his eyes going, it's because Penny's here. And she's having a wander around, but she will fall asleep at any moment. We're hoping her doggy diazepam kicks in. But I managed a restaurant, and with that was an immense amount of stress, an immense amount of pressure. And it's like stress. You automatically say stress and you think of something negative, don't you? But I saw it as eustress, and the word eustress is kind of the enjoyment that you get from stress. I like being put in that kind of fight or flight response mode. I like that. I did mixed martial arts from the age of 6 until 16, and that was the only thing that kind of tamed my brain, the only thing that tamed my mind. It was kind of cathartic. It was what controlled my aggression. Now, when I lose sight of what I want to do, when I lose focus, actually having that stress, it's just, again, a blessing and a curse. If I haven't got anything to do, I'll find something to do. It's very, very, what's the word? There was a terminology for it, toxic productivity disorder. Now, there's loads and loads of things that, I think that was just made up, but it makes sense. So once I'd kind of got to where I could finally get with like my mixed martial arts, I got to my black belt level 2, or Dan 2 black belt. I couldn't then do my next one until I was 18, and I was only I got my first one at 12. I got my second when I was 13 or 14. I had to wait 4 years then to go to my third. Once I realized that I couldn't move any further, I quit. When I realized that I couldn't get any further in the position I was in the restaurant, I quit, because I wasn't being challenged. And then that's when I went back into cutting hair at 21 years old. First day, first haircut, terrible. Went in scissor over comb with the blade slightly open and grabbed a big chunk of hair out. It was on my boss. It was hilarious. He screamed. And from then, I think it became a very unhealthy obsession. Is it an unhealthy obsession?
I guess that's subjective, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think so. I was obsessed with it. I loved it.
I guess if it's an obsession, is something that you can work in,
Yeah.
and it's not really a bad thing.
And if it pays a living, it's an obsession. You know that it's something that you want to do if you finish it at your day job, and then you want to go home and carry on. And no matter what else gets in the way, and we will delve into that again later on. I think where successful people are, I class myself as successful because I am content with where I have got. And if it was to all end now, I'd still be happy. I feel like I've reached a level that makes me content. Some people might look at me and say he's not successful. It's not successful yet, whereas other people would have thought that 5 years ago. But with what comes with that is sacrifice and selfishness, real selfishness. And I've only started to realize that over the past year. I've been called selfish before. It's a very detrimental comment to be told, and it's personal. It's not like you say, if someone says to me, "You're short, you're little, you're a midget," like, "Oh yeah, no, yeah, of course I am. I'm 5'6" 3/4.
5'11".
I'm 5'7", give or take 3 inches. But that's obvious. Whereas if someone actually says to you, you're selfish, that's not something that's like physically obvious. It's something to do with your kind of like values. It's something to do with, who you are as a person, your personal identity. And no one likes to hear it, but the truth hurts. And when you actually have to self-analyze and look at yourself, you realize actually, for the past few years, I've actually been for the past a long time, I've been extremely selfish. I've had a goal, I've had an ambition. And I've not let anything else take precedent. I've not let anything else get in my way. But, upon that journey, I've managed to work my way to the peak in which I could do in a barbershop, working for someone else. I wanted to stay there. I gave them the option of being more involved. They're very proud people. They didn't want that. It was their name above the door, their words, our name above the door. And whilst that is there, then unfortunately you have to do things our way. So then it was a case of, right, I'm going to do my own thing. That was the plan. And it was like, that's the natural progression, isn't it? When people leave, you've had people leave you. I've had people leave me. It pinches. It doesn't, it's not very, very nice. But then sometimes, as long as it was done delicately, as long as it was done professionally, then, you've got to be happy for them people. So at first I left, and we did it perfect. It was like 6 weeks notice. Found our own place. I'm going to be leaving. This is 6 weeks notice. We're going to leave. And then we're going to work on our new premises. And once we've done that, then we'll open, which will give you this grace period of us leaving to us working on the shop and then opening. And we did open. Things went a little bit sour because obviously their business just declined a little. And we were in that building for about 18 months. We outgrew it. We went to a different place. We did 6.5 years there. Obviously 2 of that years was the pandemic, which obviously was just a massive big kick in the ghoulies. But then I think in the face of adversity right there and then, it was either go big or go home. And it was like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this properly. I'm not paying rent anymore. We paid rent, 90% of the way through the pandemic, 95% of the way through the pandemic. And then it got to the point where I was like, had enough. I'm not paying someone else's life. I'm not paying for someone else's pension just because of the words, it's business. Someone says to you, it's just business. That means that they don't give a fuck what you do or what you say. It's nothing personal. And I'm a very personal person. Like, I take everything personally. Obviously, if you read the book, The 4 Agreements, and I've read that, and it was like, that was like my Bible. Don't take anything personally. Do everything to the best of your ability. Always be true to your word. And what was the last one?
By Ruger.
By Ruger Essential. Always be true to your word. Never take anything personally. Do everything to the best of your ability. And never make assumptions. And I'm still trying to do that. because overthinking leads to making assumptions. I can't help but take things personally, but I'm always true to my word, and I do everything. The one I do most is try and do everything to the best of my ability. And again, that comes into like the selfish aspect of who I am, because I'm trying to do something that's the best of my ability. Sometimes the priority in which I prioritize the values in my life differently sometimes.
But it's not like you are someone with the best attention span at times. So I guess it must be hard to juggle so many things at once.
Yeah.
Whilst trying to build, whilst being selfish, but at the same time of being selfish, you're also being selfish for the future of your kids.
And do you know what? Like, my intentions, it's like if you get told something, someone says or makes an assumption or makes a judgment of you and says you are selfish, you have an ego, I would agree. Yes, I've been selfish, but my intentions are good. Don't misconstrue my ego for confidence. And it's not an ego that's, again, detrimental. It's confidence. I have, low self-esteem like most people, but then sometimes I have good self-esteem, which, I will reinforce with affirmations, praise, self-praise, gratitude. People don't pat themselves on the back, like, did you actually set this up and then go, this looks, well, you obviously from Liverpool, so did you look at it and go, oh, that's boss, that's boss.
I think when we got it set up and set the lights up, me and Max, who's behind the camera, we turned the lights on, we put the cameras on, set up the shots, and we were like, looks good.
Yeah, see,
the vision come alive.
It's nice that, and it's obviously like I've just took on the biggest project of my entire life, and I hadn't even praised myself yet because it's not finished. And I have a friend, a client who's...
That's Penny, by the way.
That's Penny. It's not me scratching. Yeah.
Desk.
The flea collar's kicking in. We have a psychiatrist who comes in the shop. And post lockdown, I'd kind of gone through everything, and he's always delving. He's good. It's his job. It's like autopilot for a barber is to make conversation, and the conversation tends to be the same. What you doing this weekend? Where you going on holiday? Like I ask what you having for tea, ask about the kids. It's conversation, and it's nice to have that kind of like monotonous kind of and repetitive conversations with people, because you get to know them and their personalities and stuff.
It's
like that.
not repetitive to them though.
No, it is to you, but it's not to them, and that's what they want to hear. They want that.
They like to talk about themselves. Yeah, everyone does.
You give them those triggers for them to talk. Like I've done it with barbers before, like 2 or 3 of my barbers, where I've said like, let the client do the talking. That's what they want to do. People like to hear, not in a bad way. People don't like to hear their own voice, but they like to vocalize what they're doing, their opinions and stuff like that. Let them get it off the chest. That's part of your job. But this psychiatrist said to me, like, everything that you're explaining, do you not ever like have any therapy for it? And I said, no. And he said, like, well, there's, ADHD and ADD. And he said, that you have ADD. And I was like, I read incessantly. Like, obviously, I've had this mad obsession with reading, and I know I have. And there are different levels of anxiety. People have, like, introverted or low level or low intensity or low functional anxiety, whereas I have, like, highly functional anxiety. It's like I can't stop. My feet haven't stopped moving. My hands won't stop moving. Like, it doesn't mean that I'm anxious and my heart rate goes crazy like some people do. You can have chemical anxiety, psychological anxiety, and having highly functional anxiety is really, really, really stressful in terms of what it does for your mental health. Not a lot of people know, kind of like what the symptoms are and how to get over them. And one of them obviously is things like mindfulness. And you can stop it. A very, really, really simple way is by, let's say, if we just stop and look at a glass for 30 seconds, it can reduce it by 50%. And it was like he started telling me these little mechanisms of kind of like getting over it. And he said, if you wanted me to write your prescription, if you wanted me to can I like get you into some therapy? Then that would help. I said, will it stop me from being productive? He said it would probably reduce it because you wouldn't be as highly functional. You wouldn't be as kind of hyperactive. You wouldn't be as motivated. No, then no, thank you. I'll deal with it myself. There are lots of different ways out there of self-medicating, not by medication, by medicine. Obviously, that's why I used to drink so much. Obviously, when I get to the kind of the origins of why I was such a highly functional alcoholic was because it would numb it. It would dampen it down. It would stop me. It would make me sit down. I'd always have my phone in my hand, on my laptop, on my lap, but I was always doing something, but not as physically active. Whereas now it's like I have this overwhelming guilt if I go home and there's something that I know that he's doing. There's always something that he's doing at home. 2 kids, a wife. There's always dishes. There's always clothes. There's like an endless amount of washing and ironing and cleaning that he's doing. So, and then at the shop again, if I have 10 minutes before a client, I will build a shelf. I will get a paintbrush out. I will do something. I'll sand something. I'm constantly working, which is something that I'm trying to relax, work on. Get into more mindfulness, get into more meditation, experimenting with different medicines, plant medicines, and they help massively. They do. They're not the answer to everything. They're not, but they help momentarily, and obviously for temporary solutions, they do work.
I think that's the key word there is experimenting. So working out what works for you, because there's many different studies now around things like psilocybin, and now talking about San Pedro and peyote also. Yeah. You want to talk a little bit about
Happily.
that? Yeah.
Happily. So 2 years ago, I was introduced to a book that was called Magic Medicine, and it went through kind of like all these altered states of consciousness substances, all plant-based, not designed in a lab. They weren't, things like ecstasy. It was kind of like the more plant-based ecstasy. So where you would get natural MDMA from the tree bark, where you would get psilocybin from, peyote, and San Pedro, which are a cactus. Psilocybin, which is the active ingredient in certain mushrooms, obviously commonly known as magic mushrooms. And then things like LSD, obviously, is manufactured and engineered. There is LSA, which is baby woodrose seeds, which is the natural form of LSD. And you start looking into it and thinking, what were they made for? And obviously in the 50s and 60s, they were made and they were used for the treatment of people with psychosis, people with anxiety, depression, people with a magnitude of addictions and problems. And as all these tests started to happen, basically it was, I hate the term woke, because people will say, oh, he's just woke. And I think it's used as a term to point at someone and say, that's what they are becoming. They're becoming woke. And then you've got the conscious and the unconscious. So obviously when you start exploring things like mindfulness, you start exploring or trying things like psychedelics, you awaken your consciousness. And when you become more conscious, sometimes it's difficult. It's quite overwhelming what you realize about yourself, what you realize about other people. And an unconscious person from a conscious person just within 5 minutes of having a conversation with them. And then let's say you experiment with something like peyote, which is a mescaline, which comes from a cactus. Now, or psilocybin, which was the first thing that, and these are microdoses as well. So everything I'm talking about right now is microdosing. So it's a small enough amount for you not to pass over that threshold of actually having, let's say, visions or lack of control or hallucinations or any kind of feeling in your body. You don't feel anything because the actual dosage is so small. But when you look at psilocybin, let's say, psilocybin has been clinically proven to open up neurological pathways into your brain to enhance your cognitive function, to increase your creativity, to reduce anxiety, depression, PTSD. It's to help with addiction. And we were talking about conscious and unconscious. Sometimes you open up doors and you wish you hadn't. And then that's where the term ignorance is bliss. Because when you don't know about these things, when you don't know about these things about yourself, when you don't know about these things about other people, it's like, it's nice. But then sometimes you do have to open up those doors and you do have to delve in. And I think every person that I speak to now, you know, I shared something on social media and it was Boris Johnson has passed the bill for psilocybin to be tested in the UK. And I shared it. And I got loads of messages then saying, is that something that you're into? And it's something that I will not hide. Something that I will not say. Because if someone says to me, but you're taking drugs, it's not. It's completely different. It's a natural substance. And it's something that helps with my anxiety, with depression. I have mad bouts of depression. I have mad bouts of lowness. Trying to do what I'm trying to do and trying to be where I'm trying to be leaves me completely isolated. It leaves the people around me who are closest to me distant because I'm distant, which again makes you feel even more isolated. And it's a lonely place.
Do you feel almost that people don't understand you and your
nail on the head
direction?
Nail on the head. When my wife was asking me questions like, you know, where do you think it all comes from? And kind of like when years and years ago, you know, we said on the documentary about the final place that stopped me from drinking. If you knew the place that I was in right then, you'd understand why I wouldn't or probably wouldn't drink again, which we'll go into later on because I have had a drink since. Because one of the things that I'll always be honest, I'll never hide anything. Since then, I have drank, not in excess. I have drank, and I'll explain the reasons why. But no, people don't understand. I don't think my parents understand. I don't think my wife understands me, and I think that's because they don't know your brain. They don't know what's going on in your mind. They don't know what your intentions are. It's very easy to someone to point the finger, or easy for someone to say, like I said before, you're selfish, you're egotistical. And it's like, you don't know what my intentions are. Like, yes, I'm going to work again this weekend, or yes, I'm going to do this, or yes, I'm going to do that. But deep down, I know what my intentions are. I know the greater good. I know full well that it's like the iceberg euphemism. You see this tiny little tip of the iceberg, which is success. And underneath that, you see late nights, early mornings, sacrifice, loss, depression, you know, mushroom. Yeah. They're on the top, sprouting out of the iceberg. But it's not something that you just go in with. I mean, you know, what are your thoughts on things like psychedelics and opening your mind, or using that little tool, that kind of little mechanism to try and help you understand you or understand the world? Do you agree with it or do you disagree?
I'm open to like all types of experimentation. Like I did a few DMT trips, kind of kept it to myself. Would I do it again? It's intense when you break through on it. The breakthrough is like for people who don't know, it's like the third level. Let's say you have like the ones where you can just get like a body high, and then it's the one where like things are moving around the room, and then there's one where it's like complete out of body experience. Would I recommend it for someone with really like intense mental health issues? Probably not.
No, yeah.
I don't think it's going to help them. I think I was borderline at the time. Could have sent me the opposite way. Should I have done it alone? Probably not. After that, I went and did like a 3-day ayahuasca retreat. Learned a lot about myself. Terrifying. I had like one of the most intense 2 nights of the 3 nights in my life. Really, really intense. Some people got a lot more out of it. Some people got nothing out of it. So I think it depends where you're at, what you're using it for. And I guess what your brain's like as well. But then since, I've experimented with like microdosing shrooms, and I would definitely say it has a positive effect. I'd say my microdoses on the higher side have a better effect with me. I always feel like where I've self-medicated with stuff in the past, I've always gone, I don't know if I've just got a higher tolerance for everything, but I've always had to take a little bit more than anyone else.
Yeah, I get you there, because I mean, like the very first couple of times that let's say it's a 30-day microdosing course, 2 days on, 2 days off, for example. And James Fadiman was one of the first people to experiment with it, and obviously I read his book. I read the Psychedelic Explorer's Guide, and I'm talking like I did like months of research before I even attempted anything. Found a reputable and trustworthy supplier, someone who I knew, and I knew exactly what I was buying. And once I'd done, say, 3 months, my train of thought was completely different. I never used to be able to run without music. I thought if someone runs without music, you're a serial killer, because of what my mind was like. My mind was, if I went for a run and I would get all of my training gear on, and I would literally get the dog and I'd get at the door. If I couldn't find my headphones, I wouldn't go. That's how bad it was. Now I just want, if I have a microdose, or once I'm like, say, 2 weeks in, I just want peace. I like the sound. I like everything around me. And it's like, you don't have this overnight realization. It's just, within a couple of weeks, you realize that your train of thought is completely different. You have more patience. You have more resilience. It's like, for example, I put my playlist on shuffle and I'll go skip, 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 skip. There's a song. Now, I don't touch it. I just let it play through. And I realized that is a shift. That's a change. That's, again, it's like, enjoy each song. It doesn't really make a difference. My ability to deal with stress has changed, even though my stress levels are a lot higher with everything that's going on at the moment. They are through the roof. Like, and you said it before, I'm spinning that many plates with small amount of support, and I do enjoy it. That eustress is there, but with things like microdosing, and you know what, like I'll microdose, but then I'll have as much time off as I will on. And it's one of the only substances in the entire world that isn't addictive. You don't become reliant on it. In fact, the time off is sometimes more enjoyable than the time on.
A lot more grounded.
Yeah, you are. And obviously different substances, different plant medicines make you feel different things. Like, I realized I tried the baby woodrose seeds, which is LSA, which is the natural LSD. And it's like, people, you think of it and you go, whoa, LSD, that's acid. And LSA, that's the natural, that's acid. That's what, like, hippies, and that's what people get smashed on. First of all, it's a tiny, tiny amount. And second of all, like, used correctly, Silicon Valley was made on LSD. Henry Ford, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, like all these people have notoriously come clean about microdosing things like LSD and psilocybin. And the only reason why it was made illegal was because we said before about, obviously, people being woke and conscious and unconscious. People were taking it in the 60s around the Vietnam War, 50s or 60s, around the Vietnam War. And you should know, you're not Vietnam.
That's staying in.
That's staying in.
60s, 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. I don't know.
16, 70s.
60s, 70s.
Around that time. Anyway, it was when Nixon was in. And what people were doing was, yes, people were taking them recreationally, because it's all about setting and the mind frame that you're in. I've done macro doses, obviously, which is obviously a stronger dose, which puts you into a complete, like you said before about the DMT. I've done that with psilocybin, magic mushrooms, and you have to have an intention. You can't just, or you have to have no intention. So the first time I did it, it was like, I'm just going to roll with it and see where it goes. So the first time it was like, just colours, tears, actual tears, like, but laughter. on my own with a playlist that was specifically put on Spotify for people on this little psychedelic journey, and just felt so cleansed and refreshed afterwards. I weren't in a hurry to do it again, because you do go through waves of it being nice, then being not so nice. But Richard Nixon realized that people were taking the plant medicines, and it was making them realize that that's not our war. And you know, our friends, our family, our fathers, everyone was being killed, and for something that he was trying to do. It was one man pissed with power, and they said no. So he made it all illegal, even though it was like scientific breakthrough for helping people. It's something that is grown that occurs naturally and used correctly is there to help people. There is an antidote for everything that goes wrong with the human body on this earth. It's just obviously finding it and using it correctly. Used incorrectly, yes, when used recreationally, which I have done years ago, mushrooms are completely different.
Yeah, it's very different.
It was really, really funny. I was chasing a fish around a student house for about an hour, and I've realised it was just a pattern in the carpet. Time of my life. But it was fun. And I think anything that alters your states of consciousness is something that you can experiment with. It's your body, it's your mind. If it's something that's going to help you, it's like if alcohol helps, it helps. Just before I went on a holiday, we went into a Greek restaurant, and they sold so I did 4 years and 8 months no alcohol. I had this very, very, very strong nostalgic feeling when we went to a Greek restaurant, and they sold this lager called Mythos, which is just...
Were you going to say Ouzo? I thought,
No. It was actually offered. We was going to Greece not long after, like the week after, and I was offered Ouzo, and I said no. That's just like no. But the nostalgia, the feeling, and do you know what? I had like one beer there, and it was the first beer I'd had in 4 years, in 8 months, and it felt nice just to have one beer and chill. And then we went on holiday the week after, and having a beer by the pool, having a glass of wine at night. And there was a couple of days where I probably drank more than I should. I wasn't pissed on any of the days, but I drank, recreationally, like someone who had a healthy relationship with alcohol did do on holiday.
do you think, because obviously you're very stressed recently, but do you feel like the mind, the place you are in your mind has had a big difference? Yeah,
I think that it's you do everything you can. Everyone wants something and they want it straight away, whether it's relief, whether it's wants that kind of like numbing from stress. And I realized recently that I wasn't falling back into falling back into old habits. So like coming home, opening the fridge, grabbing a beer or a glass of wine, and then realizing that that just helped. So like having a glass of Prosecco, because Lindsay likes Prosecco, so it's like opening a bottle of Prosecco. She has a glass, I have a glass. Then she has a glass, I have another glass, and the bottle's gone. And it's like that was the easiest, but it's not the most healthiest way of dealing with it, because then the next day I wake up again. But even that little tiny mind altered state of consciousness, even that little tiny altered little state, I feel it does help. I just need to kind of re-understand. I'm having to relearn lots of things about things like alcohol. When to use, what's your limit? The feeling from one. What's the difference between 1 and 2? There isn't much difference between 1 and 2. That 1 is the one that is great. It feels lovely to have that one. But then once you start going past that point, that's when you start getting more and more numb, more and more sleepy. And it's like, I don't like that bit.
I think the big difference is you were sitting by a pool, you're relaxing, you're on holiday, and then when you're using it to come home at the end of the day to relax and sit on the sofa, that's when it turns back into...
Yeah, that's when it turns into like toxic behavior again. So it's all about relearning about yourself. So like we mentioned before about intentions. Like if I have some San Pedro, and it's always done the same time every day on my morning walks. You've witnessed my morning walk. and I will have it with a coffee in the morning, and I'll go out and I'll think, and I'll just constantly reflect. It's like this learning process is not just about having goals. It's not about knowing what your values are. It's about kind of like reflection as well, and observations. Yeah. And it's really, really overwhelming sometimes, and it's nice to have those times off. And it's like I've spoken so much about goals. It's like my morning inspirational talks. I like to call them inspirational talks because it's when I have inspiration and I think of something, to verbalize it only reinforces it for me also. And I talk to people about goals, and people will message me about their goals. Oh, I don't have any. And it's so good to have, like, trust me, you're in a better place not having goals. The goal today is just do some nice haircuts, just be happy. Like, just try and eat healthy today. Try and not have a glass of wine when you get home. Small goals, always think molehills, not mountains.
People always think so far ahead, and it's so overwhelming to think about. People might look at you and go, oh, how's Alan done that? I want to build what he's built, but I want it now.
But that's human nature.
Yeah.
You always want what someone else has got. You don't ever see what you've got. And people look at that and think, it's like my thought this morning. I went for a walk, and it was kind of, I do have this horrible behavior where it's like gold medal syndrome. You train for 4 years, you get the gold medal, and you go into this whirlwind of depression because you don't know what's next, or you don't know where your purpose is going to lie. And every man and woman are driven by purpose. As a Darwinian, Charles Darwin's was always, the paternal was to provide, survive, and protect. And then the maternal was to conceive and look after children. And we are still very, very primal. We just don't realize that. Obviously, modern day man and woman, now it's kind of amalgamated into the same thing. We're both supposed to look after the children. We're both supposed to have the careers. So then when you get up this morning, I was thinking what my goals are, and I felt this kind of level of lowness because the building is almost done. The project that I finished is almost done, and it was like, what am I going to do after that?
Next?
And I was like, there's definitely something wrong. Like, I have to reevaluate. Do I have to have a goal? Like, instead of focusing on goals right now, I'm just going to focus on values. Because if you focus on a goal constantly, you have to remember that a goal is something that is reachable, and then it ends. And then you feel sad because it ends. Whereas if you just focus on a value is something that you hold on to forever. It can change, but it would only kind of change ever so slightly. You're not going to think to yourself like, my value, if I look at my values and say, right, I want to be a hard worker, I'm never going to change that value and say, I'm going to be a shit worker. I want to be a good dad. You're never going to change that value as to, I'm going to be a shit dad. And so this morning I was just kind of thinking, and I'm not taking anything at the moment at all, but that's how the depth of what my thought was this morning was, stop focusing on goals, start thinking about values now, because one's finite and one's infinite. And that was it. That was my thoughts this morning.
I think where goals kind of mess with, I mean, we sound very similar in terms of how we set goals.
I think we are. I think with me and you are very, very similar.
We can't stop.
No.
And like you, I get home, I might have one day off on a Sunday if I'm lucky, and I'll get home and I'll spritz the house and I'm doing stuff until 5, 6, and then I sit down, then it's Monday. Yeah. But in terms of goals, people have smaller goals, we have big goals, and then I don't know about you, but I'm always stressing about, well, if I don't do it, if I don't get this done by the time I'm 40 or 45, it's not going to happen for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. I put a time frame on everything. Let's look at, like, obviously, like, I have a strong education background, and there are so many ways.
GCSEs.
Yeah. I did good at my GCSEs, actually. It was more the, once I'd obviously learned kind of my profession, I then went obviously to do educational courses, which is like, it's very, very similar to a PGCE. So once you've got your subject, you learn then how to deliver that to someone else and teach it. So you look at SMART, SMART. So it's got to be specific, it's got to be measurable, it's got to be achievable, it's got to be realistic, and there's got to be a time frame. And that thing with the time frame for me, it's like, I'm 37 now. Am I where I wanted to be? I'm not, and I know that you think that you're not. When in comparison to probably 90% of the population, you're probably way further ahead. But that is the curse of being ambitious, of being, again, like having highly functional anxiety and always wanting more. And people do message me and say things like, mate, how did you get there? How did you do that? And I want a project like that. I'm like,
but people have probably been doing that for the past 8 years.
Yeah.
Whether that's the first shop or the products, or now you've got a whole building dedicated to Ruger.
Yeah.
People always want to know how you got to that place. Mine was, how did you start a YouTube channel? Did it?
Yeah.
I didn't. Can you send me the list of how you...
How old is that YouTube channel now? It's got to be
10 years. Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah. But, yeah, people just want to know the answer without...
actually realising.
Yeah.
It's like...
I don't even know the answer, because
No.
it just happened. It was 10 years of shit show, stress, nearly wanting to die, crying, like lonely nights.
Yeah.
But there was no plan to it, or it wasn't linear. It was up and down, and you just have to be kind of in it. And you can't replicate that.
No, because whatever works for you is not going to work for someone else. And it's like people look at you where you are right now, and you take it as a compliment when they say congratulations. But saying congratulations, are you ready? Because this I think this should be the title of the podcast. And success is like being pregnant. Everyone says congratulations, but no one knows how many times you got fucked. And that is so true. It's like fucked by people, businesses, companies, everyone around you, yourself. How many times you beat yourself up, you've thrown something in the bag, you've had that sunk cost fallacy where you've like tried something and you've just got to the point where I've spent so much time, effort and money on a project. Do I give it up? Do I fuck it off? The sunk cost fallacy kicks in and you think, I'll have to give it up. But then you don't want to, because you put so much time, effort and money into it. So I had that feeling. We've had the building for 10, 11 months. And, I didn't realise the magnitude of the amount of work and money and effort that was going to go into it. I didn't realise how much sacrifice I was going to have to make. So people see the building, they see the floor, they see the units, they see the apartment, the co-working space and the coffee shop, the little terrace, the fact that we've got a building dedicated just to the product company, and think, that'd be good. That'd be nice to have. But you've got to ask yourself, what is the thing that you love the most around you? Are you willing to sacrifice that? I didn't ask myself that. I didn't ask my wife if I could do it. I didn't kind of sit down with her and say, look, this is the building, this is what's going to happen. Like, are you prepared as me, as my partner, to go in ahead and do it? I never had that conversation with her, because that's where the selfishness comes in. I just was like a red rag to a bull. I'm going to do it. I'm committed to it. I'm going to go for it. Went for it. Got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds in debt. Spent 90 hours a week on it for the past 8 months. Still cutting hair, still traveling, still doing education, still driving over to Liverpool to do podcasts. But this is nice, because this is a break. This is like therapy. I always say that about podcasts, whether I'm listening to one or whether I'm doing one. It is like therapy. I feel great after this. And when people ask, or will people say, ask about the building and the project, I'll just say honestly, is it worth losing the thing closest to you? Because I've lost friends, my marriage has suffered tremendously. My relationship with my kids, I've missed out so much on the kids. I've missed loads. And yes, I bit off more than I can chew. But that is kind of like my attitude. Bite off more than you can chew, and then learn how to chew. And obviously, the more you bite, the more fulfilled you are afterwards. And I just that's like my mantra at the moment. Just keep biting, just keep chewing, you'll be fine. And at the end, it'll be worth it. And everyone always says that. They come in and all our clients are so beautiful and they're so nice, and everyone always sees me with cuts, bruises. Like literally I had a cut on my shoulder once and it wouldn't heal, and it was like because I was always like lifting things and there was like blood on my t-shirt constantly. And then I was cutting a piece of steel with I cut all the tiles with no glasses on. So it was like once or twice a week I had a chip in my eye, and there were times in which I'd have to either pick it out and think, God, my eye is so incredible at healing, when in actual fact if it had gone any deeper it could have blinded me. And then I had an angle grinder on a piece of steel, and it was a piece of corrugated aluminium, actually aluminium, not steel. And as I got to the corrugated part, it flew off and grazed my knee to the point where it opened up, and I'm talking like 3 or 4 mil into flesh, and it could have literally have just whipped my kneecap off. No. But people notice it and they see it, and they go like, they say things like, oh, Alan, just keep going, it'll be worth it in the end. And I'm like, if I hear that one more time, it'll be worth it in the end. Like I've told myself that, but I'm just hoping that it will be worth it in the end and everything will go back to normal. But going back to what I said about people wanting what you've got, or people wanting the opportunity, it's like, are you prepared to lose friends, to alienate family, to sacrifice everything? I'm talking financial, emotional, psychological, family, everything. Are you prepared to go through all that? Because if you are not in the right place and you are not, then just don't do it. Trust me, you'll be happier.
The thing is, even if you knew what you were getting yourself into, you probably or may not have done it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't have gone as big.
Yeah. So if someone says they want what you've got, you're like, no, you don't. You don't want to live in, like I always say to people. I don't always say to people, but I think you don't want to live in my brain for the day. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
People say, they say they're tired. I'm like, you don't. I mean, it's even worse for you. You've got kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't want what I've got because
No.
it's stressful, and
I actually find it quite distressing when someone is envious, and people at the moment, especially on social media and friends and stuff, they're very, very, very complimentary, and they're really, really nice. I think I get lucky with like haters and stuff like that. I don't really honestly, like, I'm not being trying to stay humble when I say it, but I have, I am who I am on social media, and I try not to preach too much. It's just kind of my opinion. But I don't really have many bad comments.
You need to get YouTube.
I know, yeah. I do. I try to put. I have had in the past. I have, but I don't have many. But when people are complimentary, because they are nice, and I do have like a nice following, which I really, really appreciate. Even though it fluctuates and it's up and it's down, or it's steadily on the decline, but I get new followers, and I would prefer to have, like the followers that follow me for a reason and like to follow me, rather than the ones that just do it just because they want to see, like footballers or something. They like my content, so they follow me for that reason. And people who are complimentary will say something nice, and it's where I like to be humble and thank them, and they'll give me a compliment on it, and I still sometimes can't even take compliments because I just don't feel like I'm there.
That's a funny thing, because I feel very similar. Like when people say you've done so well, are you happy with it? And I can't accept it. It sounds like you're exactly the same. I can't go. I've never gone, you've done a really good job there. Like, congratulations. People would kill to be where you are.
Yeah.
I've never said that to myself and meant it.
Yeah.
I've tried to sit down and meditate on it, or do a ceremony and take mushrooms and think like, love yourself, congratulate yourself.
Yeah.
You've worked so hard. I can say it, but I won't accept it.
I did recently, and it was a very, very, very liberating and very, very nice feeling. We did a job in Madrid, and they organised it. It was called 11 Education, and they organised it. I've never ever been to an event so well organised in my life.
Refreshing.
It was incredible. All we had to do was turn up. It was simultaneous translation. So you talked fluently in English, and there was a soundproof booth at the back with two really, really good translators who did sentence, then next sentence, who did like play tennis. One did a sentence, the other did a sentence, and everyone in the room was Spanish and had headphones on. And it was just so refreshing. And because he didn't have to stop, he didn't have to lose momentum, and you could just do your education and talk and go from one subject to another, and try and be motivational, but try and be educational, and just kind of go backwards and forwards, inspire and motivate people and educate them. And then at the end, I got back to my hotel room and I was absolutely shattered. Late flight, early morning, knew that we was flying out first thing in the morning, like getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Lay on the bed, I did about 2 or 3 minutes breathing, and I actually said to myself, you did a really good job today. Like, you did really well. Like, I enjoyed it. I think I got my point across. I went on social media, and you don't do it for the adulation. You don't do it for the messages. You don't do it for that. For me, everything's always been intrinsically motivated. I don't do it for the money. People might look and think.
That was the next question, actually.
Sorry?
That was going to be my next question.
Well, go on, you ask the question.
So, like, has it, like, success, do you deem success aligned with finances? That's basically
extrinsically.
Yeah.
No, not one bit.
Is it legacy?
I was just about to say, there is a book called Legacy, which is about the New Zealand All Blacks. And it's not about how much money you can earn. It's about the people that you can influence, and people who remember you because of how you touch them psychologically and physically, depending on who they are.
Max.
Yeah, Max, he was being touched. It's legacy. But what kind of legacy are you leaving behind if everyone else is being sacrificed? If you're sacrificing other people around you, especially your family. Legacy is everything. For me, having money doesn't make me happy. Having money gives me a little bit more freedom to let my children have what they want, to have the house that I want. Unfortunately, you do have to have a balance. Let's say, for example, Danielle, who works for me, she introduced me into this kind of like spiritual and plant-based healing, and she is mad into it. You know, she obviously does yoga, she does meditation, she does different retreats, different ceremonies, and it was her that bought me the plant medicine book a couple of years ago. And she is just literally, she's all about, she don't care how much money she earns, as long as things are paid for. So she's totally intrinsically motivated. She cuts hair because she likes it. She goes for a walk in the woods because she likes it. She'll do an ayahuasca retreat for 8 hours, 12 hours because she likes it. She'll drive all the way to Glastonbury and do mushrooms in the woods because that's what she wants to do. As long as she makes enough money to do that, that's all she's happy. And I said that's all good and well, but you do need to have that balance between them. Like, I know full well that in order for the world to go round, for us to have what we want, we have to make money. You've got to. The only problem is when your motivations are completely internal and intrinsic, which mine are, but I know full well that extrinsic motivations, they have to be somewhere in there. Look at yin yang, look at order and chaos. You know, there has to be balance in the world. And you know, you've got to do something that you love, but it's got to also pay the bills and earn you money. Now, I'm not saying that I like to earn a lot of money, but the way that I can compose myself, the things that I can do, the things that I can say, the way that I can motivate people means that I can earn more money. If I stop cutting hair and advertise myself as a full-time educator, open an academy, and did all these different things, I would have a lot more money. A lot more money. Like, I worked out how much money I'd earn, and it would be a fortune. But I have a community of clients. I have a list of clients that I'd be letting down. And I know,
You've been cutting some of them since they were kid, like
Kids. My first client was 2 years old. My first ever client was 2 years old, and his dad said to me, "Go on, Al. I know you're not fully trained yet, but you can do Riley's hair." And now Riley's 18 years old, 16 years ago, and he's about 3 foot taller than me. And I used to have to sit him on this, like an actual kid's seat, that like the seat was up here on like a stand, like a tripod.
No, you have to stand on it.
No, I have to stand on something else to cut his hair. But I don't want to let them down. So I still cut hair in the shop. You read books like 4 Hour Work Week or The E-Myth, and it's about working on your business rather than in it. And again, it's like, if I step away from the business, I am the business. People want to see me there. People are just as good as me. You know what? They're not just as good as me at cutting hair. They're better than me. You get the Colby, Gracie, they're unbelievable. Danielle, phenomenal. Ryan, Aiden, Daniel, Reece, Tash, they're all fantastic. And the Lytham shop, the guys there, like Carly, she's insane. And they're so good at cutting hair, and I could step away, but then I'd be letting a lot of people down. And that is my intrinsic motivation. It's the people that I want to see more than anything. And because I focus so much on what's internal, how I feel, the relationship that I have with them, the haircut that I can provide for them, the extrinsic follows. My prices haven't gone up in education in 3 years. Nothing's changed. My prices in the shop haven't gone up in 3 or 4 years. But you do need money to make the world go round. If I want space. I want a farm. I want land. I want an alpaca. I want a goat. I want a pig. I want animals. I want to step outside in the morning and have that smell of animal shit. I want to chop wood. I want to plant trees around my land. I want bees. I want bug hotels. That's the kind of life that I want. Find me a farm with 12 acres of land for less than 300 grand, and I will.
Maybe in another country.
it will be in a completely different country. Yeah, so that if that is my dream, and if I want that dream, then I have to make sacrifices. I have to do the things that I do right now in order to get there. So that's when we go back to intentions.
But do you ever worry? I know it's a catch-22 in all circumstances, and we're the same. But do you worry a lot about doing so much towards that goal and then missing out on everything that's going on now?
Exactly.
It might be 50, 55, and then you've got, I don't know, you could die young. 10 years, 15 years.
I'll work and get to the point where, like, my little girl, she's 5 years old now, Olive, and she's absolutely beautiful. She's a different person when she's on horses. She used to be really shy, really introvert. She's just come alive since she started school, when she's on a horse. I've never seen anything like it. It was the most beautiful thing in the entire world. And she wants a pony. Do you know how much ponies cost? Their upkeep, and it's like she wants that. But by the time that I finally get to that point where I can do it, I've not seen her for two or 3 years, and now she's into something else. So it's like I could just keep taking, or try and take her. I've only taken her to horse riding once. My wife takes her. It's on a Saturday. I work on a Saturday. But yeah, do I get to that point where I just keep grafting, and then by the time that, right, there we go, we've got a farm, we've got 12 acres. Arthur, come on, let's go, mate. Get the quad.
40.
Yeah, and he's like, nah, Dad, I've got a new PlayStation 8. Get fucked. I'm playing on Nomad Barber Builder, whatever the game will be. But yeah, again, it's just one of those debilitating and kind of like that impending like feeling of doom where you're in the rat race and you're on a time scale. So you've got to do it, and you've got to do it now. And that is the thing that's haunting me at the moment, is how much time it's going to take. I need to sit back, relax, breathe more, and then just enjoy. I mean, it's like Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. Very spiritual for me. It's a bit too much for me. I've read so much more about things like religion and spirituality recently, because I like the ethics, I like the morals, I like the philosophy and the thinking aspect of what's in there. And also like things like Buddhism and Taoism. And I love again, like the stories and the way to live a happier life. But in order to do it, Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now was just, I just don't find it as, I think it's almost impossible to do, just to live in the present. How easy is it for me to say to, like, you know, thinking about the past is what causes depression. Thinking about the future is what causes anxiety. Just live in the present. Like, in this present time right now, I threw my phone on the floor. The dog is asleep somewhere. This is like almost like a therapy session. We're fully present with each other and it feels nice. And we are very, very, we are like a mirror image of each other. I know the way that you think. You know the way I think. We're very, very similar in the way that we run businesses. And we're in the present and it feels great. It does feel really, really nice. And then when it's over, when I get in the car, I'll be thinking about the things I've got to do for the future. And then a song might come on which will kind of give me this either negative or positive kind of nostalgic feeling of something that happened in the past where I'll feel low. And there are a lot of good things that have happened in the immediate past which are pretty shit, which I will think about and I'll be disappointed. I'll feel low. And then I think about what I know for, and like my phone at the moment is just constant. Like I don't even want to open my WhatsApps at the moment. I don't want to open my inboxes. I don't want to go on my emails. So saying to someone, you just have to live in the presence. Fucking give me a light, give me a switch and I'll do that. So it's easier said than done.
I think the one thing I took from the Power Now, and it was one of the things I listened to, this is before I got the dog, I just moved into my house. I was miserable. I was going to the park every day and just listening to audiobooks. Wasn't going to I think I was working from home actually at this time. Just miserable. I think the thing that I really took away from it, like you say, it's impossible to just be fully present unless you're a spiritual guru who has the option to do that. Exactly. The one thing I've taken away as a practice is allowing myself to really absorb a lot of issues or stress, and it doesn't work every time, but being able to just kind of shrug things off and go, and I do it visually. I visualize myself letting things go, like stupid stuff, you know what I mean? Like the stuff that happens in the day and I'm like, let it go. It doesn't matter. That's my living in the present. Just stop stressing about the little things. I know it doesn't always work. Of course it doesn't always work. But for the normal person, it's easier to just think, go, you know, fuck it. There's a book called Fuck It as well. Yeah. You read that?
No.
It's basically the same thing. It's like, just let it go. Yeah. Doesn't matter.
I like the sound of it though.
Yeah.
I like books with a swear word in the title. Well, they do that in mindfulness and meditation. It's actually visualization. So obviously breathing in and then actually breathing out. Obviously an issue again. You know, my levels of kind of spirituality, my levels of it's like since microdosing, let's say for example, like religion is something like is difficult to talk about because of people's opinion and the different religions. Now, I would, this time 2.5 years ago, if you'd asked me about religion, I'd go next. I was very ignorant towards religion. And I would say I was an atheist. I'm a complete non-believer. I'm interested in science. I like Charles Darwin. I am a Darwinian. And I would love reading about him and his theories of evolution. And there is an Egyptian guy called Mo Gawdat. Have you heard of Mo Gawdat? He's got a book called Solve for Happy. And he did a podcast with Stephen Bartlett. And it was about the journey of him losing his son. His son was 21 years old. He had appendicitis. And it was how he found happiness again and how we should find happiness and what makes us unhappy. And he gives I listened to the podcast, then I read his book, and he gives his kind of explanation as to, he's Muslim, but he's not against anyone else's religion. He wasn't a practicing Muslim for a while. Now he is so he loosely puts everything. And I think that having faith is something, if someone has that, I'm quite jealous of, really, because it's not just something that you learn, like these morals and ethics. It's like Lindsay said to me, I want to take the kids to church because if they go to church and they get in these schools, I want them to get in the schools, but I don't think they should have a religion force-fed to them. And, and I've been to Christians and then I've listened to the terminology that they use, and I don't agree with it. Are you willing to give yourself to God? And then the old me would say, which one? Like my opinion on it now is completely different. The fact that there is a maker, there isn't a maker. I am completely agnostic now. Like I just believe whatever is like proved or whatever I feel is right. So if someone said to me, do you believe in God? The answer is, I don't not believe in him or it. I think God is, especially when you are microdosing something like, not psilocybin, wachuma. So wachuma is something that they call the grandpa or the teacher. And again, that's a cactus. And when you are on that, it's a very earthing psychedelic. It's very, very like what puts you in touch with nature. And I remember the first time I did it, I asked how much a microdose was. And it was just like, oh, it's just one. And it comes in a vial with a pipette. And what they do is they boil the cactus down, which obviously breaks down on the organic material, with alcohol. And then what's left is the psychedelic compound with the alcohol. Now, it's not kind of like a vodka kind of alcohol. It's obviously because it's been under heat. The actual alcohol itself has dissipated and it's gone, it's evaporated. So what you have is this very alcoholic smelling substance that's like green and gloopy, and I'm like, how much do you have? Like, oh, one. So I like did a full pipette of it every day for 5 days, and then I had 2 days off. And then in week 2, I remember just walking through the woods thinking, this is God. Like everything is God. The children, the earth, the ground, the sky, like everything. Like this is the maker. This is everything. And then it was so strange because I said to my wife, let's take the kids for a walk. Let's go on an adventure. I want to go through the woods again. I had this like an epiphany at that point. I'd had this feeling and gone, stop being ignorant now. Like think of it as your own interpretation of what you think God or a God is. And this is your interpretation of it. You're welcome to whoever, whatever you feel is that being. So that is what you're accountable to. That is what you look to for advice. That's what your faith is in. And me stood out in nature and stood out where I were. You were near it. You were near it when we did the documentary, the woods there. And I was like, this is what I'm accountable to. This is kind of like where I want to be. This is where I want to live. This is the kind of surroundings I want myself by. And we took the kids up there and we were talking. It was so strange that we got up there and Lindsay said to me, I think Olive asked who made it. And obviously Lindsay started then going into saying, oh, it was God that made all this. And I was like, we're in the same spot. I had the realization yesterday. It might have been coincidence. It might not have been. But I'm open-minded to everything at the moment. So I kind of look back and think the guilt that I was guilty for a little while of how ignorant I was about things like religion, especially now when I read about like things like Buddhism, like Jay Shetty. I read his book, How to Think Like a Monk. And it's quite a commercial. It is a commercial book. It's kind of for like, anyone to read. It's nothing specific. It's quite an easy read. And, he's Muslim, but he's a Buddhist also, which, practicing Buddhism makes him a better Muslim. For me, practicing Buddhism makes me a better person, makes me a better dad, it makes me a better boss, it makes me it makes me feel better on myself. So, yeah, that was kind of like my thoughts on religion and how it changed through the power of wachuma and psychedelics.
Have you done any full-on ceremonies?
Mushroom, yeah, psilocybin.
Yeah.
And that was so.
Was that solo or with?
Always solo. I don't think it's for me doing it with someone else. Come to a retreat, do wachuma. I've always wanted to do Kambo, which obviously Kambo is the frog, and someone who's doing the ceremony will heat up a needle. and just put 5 little dots on you to obviously break the skin, and then they put the poison of the frog onto the skin, and then the process then is obviously purging. Purging is obviously like being sick and obviously going into this like psychedelic state. And again, if you go in with an intention, it's really, really good for stopping addictions, good for bringing to the surface any issues that you have. But it's usually around someone else. And I quite like it to be a private thing. I think when I used to drink, I liked to drink on my own.
Is that because that's the only thing, that's your comfort zone?
Yeah.
So that's what you think is what you like?
I think is what I like, yeah.
Yeah.
If you'd ask me, would you prefer to be in this room with 10 people, if like 10 of your closest friends and family and drink, or would you rather sit in a room on your own and drink? It's on my own, which I think is...
Little Smirnoff Ice, Blue Wicket.
Hooch 2020. I don't know why. I don't understand it. But if I'm doing anything with an altered state of consciousness, whether it be drinking mushrooms, a ceremony...
What about even just being alone? Do you like that?
Yeah.
Is it because you live so intensely around people. Other stuff?
Yeah.
And then your alone time is for you?
I love being completely isolated on my own.
It's like silence.
Silence. I love that.
I'm just describing what I like.
I know. And do you know what as well? Like, people will think it's weird. It's like if my wife says to me, I'm going to go out tonight. Like, if you don't mind, like, you know, the kids are at your mum's, you know, and one of my friends asked me to go out, so I'm going to go out. I'm like, wow. She's like, are you going to do anything? No. And then you think to yourself, is that healthy? Is that unhealthy? I don't know. I think if it's something that I like, then surely it's fine. Obviously, there's a book, Johann Hari, he put his book was called Lost Connections. It was about anxiety and depression. And it's like when you're having those feelings of anxiety and depression, you need to be around like social interaction, being around the people that you love. Like even at those points, even if I feel low, like I still don't want to be around anyone. I just don't want to have conversation. I like to be isolated. The farm on the hill or the farm in the middle of nowhere is the isolation. I don't want to isolate myself, but I think that having, again, that balance of having such a social job where I'm around so many people, having to converse with that many people, but then having the balance of the complete end of the spectrum, that would what make me happy.
I have this similar dream. I think we've talked about it, buying land, farmhouse. I've even been viewing places recently. And my dream is, it's weird because it's a dream that's attainable, but once it's there, having this little bit of land, I want something else probably.
Yeah.
My visualization around this is getting up, walking out with the dogs with a cup of coffee in hand into the green, whether it's trees or land or whatever.
Water.
Just walking with the dogs and just thinking. Yeah. Dressing gown, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Feel the cold coming out of my mouth, but being warm.
It's very it's very primal. It's just like what you would have done. You would have, you know, left a cave in the morning, not with a coffee, but with you know. I mean, dogs have been domesticated for tens of thousands of years, but you know, you would have animals with you. It's there to protect you, and it is something that we have to go back again. It's in the book Lost Connections. You have to take everything back to your like primal instincts of, you know, what we used to do. And you know, being in a difficult situation, it's all about exposure. So like if you don't deal with stress too well, if you don't deal with the cold, if you don't deal well with confrontation, that's one thing I can't stand. I kind of learned that about myself the other day, is that I will avoid confrontation at all costs. Not that I can't handle myself, because I can hold an argument. I would just do anything I can not to have it. I've seen it when I was when I was really, really young, and it probably is ingrained in me and was quite damaging to the point where I'll do anything to avoid it. But, you know, exposing yourself to the things that you don't want or make you feel uncomfortable is what's ruining your life. You know, you have to expose yourself to everything for it to become comfortable. And once you've exposed yourself to all your uncomfortables and they're all comfy, you should be so much more happier. And, you know, me doing the same, getting up in the morning, opening the door, my dream is for the kids to get up in the morning and it's like pajamas but their snowsuits or their full all-in-ones, wellies, a hat, get outside and do the jobs that we need to do, muck the horses out and, you know, go and feed the pigs, go and do everything, you know, be outside, you know, stop staying inside looking at tech. And I mean, like, I have such an unhealthy relationship with my phone, and it's not by choice, it's by necessity. It got to that point now where that phone is just...
Do people still book appointments via you?
I'd say about 5% of my clients.
Okay, so most people just go through the app now.
Yeah, most of the people who are considerate go through the app, but people still do message. Feelings of like familiarity, you know, feelings of like favoritism. It's like, I don't need to book.
But you wouldn't change your number?
Oh no, I couldn't do that now. You've got to think, you know, that phone, it's like a drug dealer's phone. That it is. I know it's a strange euphemism, but you know, drug dealers sell their phone for tens of thousands of pounds. You know, that number, I've got stockists, I've got relationships with so many different people on there, working relationships, friendships, people that, you know, live far away, you know, and then how would I build it back up again? Couldn't change that number. And I'm not having two phones. I'm not having one, another bill, and two, everyone's going to look at me and go, why have you got two phones? Most people that have two phones sell Beak.
Do you know what I did for a while? Something out of the 4-hour work week. I had an auto reply on my emails, basically just saying, if I don't get back to you, it's because I'm too busy. And it just cut out so many people.
Really?
Yeah. Just random emails that just took up too much time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It'd be like, I'm very busy. If you really need me, email me again or text me. If you don't have my number, they can't text me.
Did you have that on about 9 years ago when I emailed you? I think we've brought this up every single time where I sent Miguel an email and he never got back to me.
But you quite quickly got me on Instagram.
I did get you on Instagram.
You're like, hello, mate. Oh.
Such an inspiration. You were though. You were, because you were the first barber on social media that actually did something different.
Good timing.
It was. Do you know what, mate? That's the humility in you, that, because you just instantly knocked it down. You didn't take the compliment. Outliers. Malcolm Gladwell. Outliers. You know, people who stand out from the crowd. You know, not. Let's say for us, you know, we're not world famous, but we're famous in our world. You can say that we're the outliers of our industry, and there are quite a lot of them, and they're the people that stand out, and they stand out for certain reasons. Now, Malcolm Gladwell's theory of an outlier was that it's not because they are like incredibly outstanding human beings. It's a culmination, and I completely agree with this. It's good timing. It's where the market was at the time. It's what you did. It's who helped you. You know, it's all the factors that made you at the time. So when people say to me, like, how do I build my following? Well, how have you got so many followers? And I always say it was just good timing. I complained literally this morning and said, like, I can't keep up with social media at the moment, because the thing that gets your reels seen now is the music that you use, the tempo that you use, the templates that you use. I can't fucking keep up with it.
Then into like TikTok, it's all about trends.
It's literally all about trends, and I refuse to keep up with it. So
you started your mostly with the haircuts, the portraits, the hairstyling. That was like your thing.
Yeah, and it stayed consistent all the way through, and then it's been my downfall. It literally doesn't bother me at all, though. Like, people would say, I've spoken to people recently and have said, look, like I was getting to like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 likes per picture, and then it declined, and I think I got like 163 on one the other day. And it's like, how can you have that much of a following but then only have that? And it's like, someone actually said to me, came into work and said, you don't post at all anymore, do you? I'm like, yeah, I do. They're like, I never see
hidden.
Yeah, I never see your stories. I never see your posts. I said, but if you go on my page now, I can guarantee that tomorrow you will see it. So
because they're pushing everyone to reels,
and we're
form.
It's my page is a business account as well. So if you have a personal account, then you have to follow this algorithm of reels. You know, your content has to be X, Y, and Z. And if you're a business account, then you have to sponsor post and pay for it. And that is as simple as that. So unfortunately, Instagram has gone fucking shit. It's not shit, but it's just it's not the way it used to be. So like you said, good timing, and I put mine down to good timing. The place where I was at physically and emotionally, there was loads of culminating factors. It wasn't just me. There was loads of other things that helped it, and probably the best one was timing. Yeah. Did you get any questions yesterday?
Yeah, I was our brains are
Yeah.
like, I was literally thinking I've got a couple of questions.
Someone asked me, and I'll put it in there because I'd like to add that to it. But it was Phil Jarman that messaged me and said, what do you think is more important, putting someone through an apprentice, putting through a college course, or putting them straight into the shop? What's your answer to that?
For me?
Well, he actually
yes.
sent that to me because obviously I reposted it and he actually put it on there. God, you got some questions, didn't you?
Yeah, I only thought I had like 2, but apparently there's more. There's a couple of funny
If
ones.
anyone has asked how many pieces of Lego I can put on my bum, then don't answer.
Was me. That's my personal question.
Well, I went on to Duplo and now I've gone on to House Bricks.
Yeah.
So now I'm being used all around the country to get iPhones into prison.
I think when it comes to, I mean, people have proved me wrong with this. I'd still definitely go down. I mean, I do both. I love the way that I did it. So we did 1 day a week in college. I don't know. I think the community colleges still do that.
It's quite similar. It's similar where we are.
Apprenticeship, 1 day in college. You know, you do need I'd get the qualification just in case. But there's people who are coming in now and learning barbering in 2 months in a shop and just unbelievable barbers. They can fade better than me. Do you know what I mean? It blows my mind how quickly people are picking things up because they got this access to this constant library of information and visuals, and I don't know if it's just kids are better now at picking stuff up through visual,
osmosis, literally just by osmosis and like learning by proxy. They're constantly watching social media, they're constantly watching videos, they're learning off other people, they're practicing, their tools are so much more accessible, the tools are actually a lot better. You know, I used to do a skin fade without half guard. You know, doing a skin fade without foil shavers.
I still say like the first time I saw one was actually, remember Kevin Hay, R.I.P. He had one, the little green one, and I was like, I remember picking it up and going, what the fuck's that? I was like, how did you trim the end? Like I thought he'd like ground out the top of the one guard to turn it into a shorter guard, and he was like, no, that's how it comes. I'm like,
it comes it was in a balding clipper case.
Yeah. I was like, what?
But my opinion, it might be just geographical, but I've been to some colleges that were great, and the teachers, like I went to Rochdale College, and there was the educators there were very intrinsically motivated. They were desperate for their students to do well, and then they came to Salon International not long after I'd been in and taught them, and like passion, pride. It's like cool running. That's the pride, that's the power, that's the passion, and that's what I saw, and I really like that. I'd say on a whole though, no, I think my answer back to Phil was that it's better once. I think someone just needs to be on the job learning. You know, you don't just want to teach someone how to cut hair. Leaders teach people how to lead, you know, not just people how to cut hair, and that's what I always wanted to do. And if you want to be a proper leader, you start from day one. Get on your hands and fucking knees and clean that toilet now before I kick the shit out of you, you little cunt. But it's discipline.
They need to learn everything that goes on.
Everything, of course.
How to stick dildos on mirrors and stuff like that.
You've got to learn.
Alan likes to do that.
The duck. I saw the 4 Ds of dodge. It's like 5 Ds. Duck, dive, dodge, duck.
I've had a lot of general questions. One was, why does he have an obsession with playing with dog testicles?
Because they're just so shiny and like soft and nice. But that's just a silly one. Do you know what, mate? It's like, you know, I've been around dogs my entire life, and do you know what? Animals' testicles are just hilarious. I'm a child. I am a child. That's one thing. If someone I have been told on a number of occasions to grow up, and when someone actually says that to me, I know that I'm being myself. So, you know, I'm very, very immature, and I'm never going to change. I'm always going to be immature. I think that the one thing that I'll always tell everyone is just be yourself. And I'm so immature. I find myself more funny than anything. It's like I did a video the other day, and Albert walked, Reece's dog Albert walked past me, and literally he walked past me on our coffee tables. And as he walked past me, it was a perfect opportunity just to swing his nads. And he swung from left to right. And I was laughing so much, and there was no one around. And I just thought to myself, just don't grow, just keep being that child.
Yeah. How easy was it to give up alcohol with today's societal pressures?
As long as you realise that there is no pressure, the only pressure is yourself. I got put to the point where I was suicidal, ready to go. Never actually said that before. I know I'm just going to cry then. I had a dog lead and was ready because I saw no way out, and I was having a liter of vodka a day, plus beers, constantly getting caught from Lindsay. There's something, I realised what it was. I found out the other day. I think it's called fragmenting. I was psychologically fragmenting, hiding it constantly, and the thrill wasn't in the actual drinking; it was actually in the hiding it aspect. And that's something that it was like behaviour that I'd kind of like took on, but it's kind of hard to unlearn that behaviour. I found it out recently. It's kind of because it's learnt behaviour. I need to know what that trigger is, even if it's a beer, even if it's like a couple of beers. I always put like one in the bin. Have a bottle of wine, put the bottle of wine in the bin. I don't know why. Fragmenting, and I'm looking into it at the moment as to why. I'm trying to break that cycle because, again, socially having an alcoholic drink has changed my kind of like social life. I have a social life. I've not had a social life for 4.5 years. It was great at first. I never enjoyed situations as much as everyone else. I was never in that same mindset. And again, that's one of the reasons why I decided to have a drink again. But giving up alcohol at that time, reading a book, and it is a CBT, cognitive behavioural therapist related book, it was easy to give it up because I literally lost everything. I had no wife, no child, and a house, and I was about to lose it all. And I was going to leave the dog at home and walk up to the woods with the dog lead and get to that point. So then when I realised at that point how bad it was, I finally did. She left and I did 2 days, and it was like 2 days it took for me to become fully sober. That's how much I was drinking. You think there is 40 units in 70 centilitres, a bottle and a half, 60 units, plus, I don't know, 20 units in beers, 80 units, that's 80 hours before all of it disappears out your body. So once I'm on the end of day 2, I'd come home from work and then realise actually I've done, I'm on at the end of day 2 or the end of day 3, and said, right, and I was reading this book. Once I've done as long as I can, I'm going to try and do as long as I can. So once I'd done the first week, it was like, just do one more day. Don't think about a year, just do one more day. Just do one more day. Then it came weeks, then it came months, then it became years. But yeah, it was quite difficult, but I had a very, very good reason to stop. I had to, or else I was either going to drink myself to death. I was either going to end it myself, and I was going to lose absolutely everything. But I've never been a hypocritical non-drinker. I've never looked at other people and gone like, oh, for God's sake. I've actually helped a lot of people who did have problems, but then I've never said to them, look, stop drinking completely. If you feel like you can't cut down, then you need to stop. I couldn't cut down. I couldn't just go home and have one. Now, if I have a drink, I know that I could buy 4 bottles of Peroni or Moretti. It's mad because it's like getting used to different beers again. And it's like, I did love a Peroni, like an actual Peroni. So actually coming home from work and having a Peroni before my tea, and then having another one with my tea, and then going, right, that's enough now. That's all I need. There's no point in drinking anymore. I've got a belly full of curry, or I've got a load of chicken and rice in my stomach. I don't need anything else. So yeah, really, really difficult, but very, very rewarding. Just depends on your relationship with it. Mine's still not we're 5 years on almost, and it's still not where I want it to be, but I'm working for it to be.
Did you kind of snap out of the suicidal thoughts, or was it a gradual process?
It took me 2 or 3 weeks.
Did you look back? Go, what was I thinking?
Yeah, of course, completely. Depression was caused by that, and the drinking. I haven't got to the root of the problem of why. I mean, I do kind of know. I do know the reason why I was drinking so much at the time. It just spiraled out of control. The alcoholism brought on the depression. The thoughts that I was having brought on the depression. The depression brought on the suicidal thoughts. And then when I stopped drinking, like both eyes opened, started seeing in colour again, and they disappeared. They went. Depression alleviated. It's just lifted away. Not completely at all, but not to like on that part of the spectrum where I wanted to do something about it. It was manageable, and it was up and it was down, but I think that's just fucking normal. I think you're stupid to think you're going to be happy every single day, wake up every morning, jump out of bed, give everyone kisses, and I do have those mornings, but there's other mornings where I don't. So
nothing is linear. That's all
exactly
I live my life by now.
Yeah.
People are chasing happiness, success, anxiety free. You could have one day like that. You could have 2 days not like that. It's not about curing yourself. It's about living with
and managing it.
What you have, All right, so dog testicles out, suicides out.
Yeah.
The most important part. In times when all motivation has been lost, what can be done to try and bring back the passion?
Going back to your roots is amazing. Like the reasons why you started. You know exactly what you do for a living. And society tells you, you meet someone out. Let's go, let's say that you're out in one of the bars that you go to, and there's loads of like pink hot pants and really hot guys everywhere. The places that you normally like to go to. And someone says like, what do you do? And automatically you'd say, I'm a barber. Because it's like, it's your core, isn't it? It's your foundation. You're an entrepreneur that does a lot of things, a broad spectrum of things, but you're a barber. That's what you started off doing. And then the next question might be like, how do you do this and how do you do that? And then the last thing is why. Whereas when you start with why you do something, that is what kind of like drives that passion and drives that motivation. So someone will say to me, what is it you do? And I'm like, I make people's day. Like I change their days. I make them feel better. I can change people's lives. Like, how do you do that? Like I sit them in a chair and I listen to them. I listen to them like vent and get all of their get everything off the chest. And most people carry these backpacks with rocks in every single day. And then when they come into the barbershop, I take a couple of those rocks out and make them feel better. And I do that by listening to them and cut their hair. And they're like, what do you do? I'm like, and I'm a barber. So we change this. It's called the golden circle. We swap that around. And it's so good for kind of like bringing back that passion and bringing back that motivation. Is taking it back to the starting point of why you do what you do. And then on another note, completely different, is to try something different. Step out of your comfort zone. Bringing back that passion by, people are very, very one-dimensional when it comes to cutting hair. They cut hair the way that they do it. Try different. Go into ladies, like get into more Afro barbering. And I say that than get into Caucasian barbering because, the majority of people get taught in college. Unfortunately, the college system is very fucking shit and don't even have an Afro course within it. which is now going to be compulsory, as it should have been a long time ago. But many people do not know how to really do Afro barbering. So, you know, there's no bias there. It's just that is what the majority of people learn, is how to cut hair, how to cut long hair, how to cut short hair, how to do fades. But they don't learn how to do proper Afro barbering, so that in college, especially in college. So do that. Do ladies hairdressing. You know, try something else. Try putting your money away and investing in something. Try a different project. Try not to be one-dimensional. It's all about being multi-dimensional, keeping yourself challenged. That'll bring the passion back.
And knowledge, learning.
Can't even, like, some of the builders have said to me every time that I'm there, what are you doing here? You don't need to be here. I'm like, I'm learning. They're like, right. Well, do you want to do something? I'm like, yes. They're like, right. This is this tool. This is a multi-tool. I'm going to draw all these boxes out for you, which are going to be your electrical boxes, and use that multi-tool. And it's like, they do it in 4 minutes, one plug socket. And I'd do it in 24 minutes, but it'd be perfect. And by the time that I'd got round to doing, you know, 18 of them, I was brilliant at it. You know, it's just small things like that. Learning something new all the time. Always asking questions. But yeah, learning is one of the best ones.
And I guess we've touched on quite a lot today.
Yeah.
I think we could keep going for another one. So you know,
should we do a part? Leave this at part 1.
Yeah, I'd say leave this as part 1. It's in like a healthy place. We're talking about, you know, your journey in mindfulness and obviously the darker stuff, and then we can go a little bit further on the next one.
Definitely.
More dog testicles.
More. I'll bring some pictures next time. I thought, I'll just bring one.
So yeah, this is the first episode of Mindful Nomad.
Thank you so much, mate.
Yeah,
I've loved it. Loved it.
Yeah, deep, dark.
Yeah. Well, it's what people. I mean, it's good to show that part of it.
I think transparency and showing your vulnerability is such it's such an important part for us as community leaders or tribe leaders to show our peers and other men as well that, you know, it's okay to you know, talk about suicide, depression, anxiety. If you don't, you might not be here.
Exactly. And you've got to talk about it because other people might be in the exact same position. And, you know, I know that my door's always open for anyone that wants to speak. Anyone that emails you will get your automated response. But, you know, that people, anything that we do talk about, I know full well that if we get any messages from it, and, you know, we're always welcome to speak about it because, you know, tribal, we want to help. We want to help, and hopefully some of the things that we've touched on today will help other people. And social media is just a fucking highlight reel. You're not going to post the shit bits. You're not going to post your worst haircut. You want to post your best haircut. And I think it's very, very toxic. It's so bad, especially for young people. And I've watched and I've heard parents, and I've watched young girls and young boys, and they just want what they see. And it's such a materialistic world that we live in now that it's quite a shit world that we live in. So this is imperative. It's not all singing and dancing. It's not all sweet punch and roses. It's not, okay? And you have to understand that in order to be successful, in order to get to a place that you want to be, you have to go to some dark places. And obviously we've been there today.
Oldham.
Some nice places of Oldham.
Thanks, bro.
Right, thank you very much, mate. Loved it.